when I was in the corporate world. I work with enterprise-sized companies. And I thought, I'm making millions of dollars a year for this company. Why aren't I making $1 million a year for myself?
Yeah.
This is the pie and I'm getting this much. Like, no, just give me the whole pie. And that's only possible when you create your own business.
Well, Vania, thanks for sitting down. These Tax Lien Code Success Chronicles have been an absolute blast over the last month. We just started doing them. I think this is the second month we've been doing these Success Chronicles, but it's been such a pleasure for me to sit down with students and just hear their journeys and hear their stories and how they're doing. So I feel like we've interacted a lot over the last year, you and I.
Oh, yeah. Yes, it's been super exciting, just everything that's going on with Tax Lien Code and just what we're doing on the side. So yeah, I have seen you quite a bit all over the country.
That's true. And I feel like I've seen your videos so many times, your Investor of the Year video. I was sure rooting for you on the Investor of the Year video. We'll run it back again this year. Tell everybody your journey, your process. Where did you start and where are you at now?
Yeah, so I went into this with some real estate background in the sense that my parents do real estate. So my parents own a couple rental properties. So I've always been around it, and they tried to get me to get into real estate from a very young age, like 14. They wanted me to start investing, but I think because that's what was expected of me, I was a little rebellious and was like, you know what? Nope, I'm not doing real estate. I'm going to go off to college, get my degree in business, go into the corporate world, become a nice CEO and rule the world that way. Well, after graduating college, I went into the business world. I went into the corporate world, did that for 5 years and realized that that is just not what I want. I realized that it was taking so much control of my life. My parents, they're able to, take a vacation whenever they want. They don't have to request time off. And I saw the freedom that they had, and it finally opened my eyes to say, like, wow, I should have done this so many years ago. And I didn't, but it's never too late. So I actually saw a Tax Lien Code ad on Instagram, which is funny because it's just like the most random place to see something like that. But I went over to my mom and I said, hey, have you ever heard of tax liens? And she said, oh, you know what? I actually tried to get into tax liens 20 years ago. But at the time, it was so difficult to do because you actually had to go to the courthouse and stuff and get the list manually. And it was very hard to obtain the information. And I said, well, there's a company called Tax Lien Code that's doing an information session. Will you come with me? And she was like, yeah, let's do it because I've always been curious about it. Now, my mom's a realtor. She's been doing real estate for years. And I just got my license, or not just, but 2.5 years ago. But I didn't do anything with my license. I got it and then it just sat and I continued to, work in the corporate world.
So your mom was curious, but she came with you to the first class.
Yeah, I sometimes get a little too excited about things and she's more of a skeptic. So I also thought about it in the way of, okay, well, if I make a decision too quickly, she'll be the one to reel me back in. But before I go into that, so I got my license because after being in the corporate world for 3 years-ish, I was like, yeah, I need to start getting into real estate. So I got my license, but then as I mentioned, I got my license and still allowed my corporate job to consume all my time. So I never actually dedicated time to real estate. So yeah, after I saw the ad on Tax Lien Code, I'm like, let's just go explore this. I really have had this on the back of my mind for, a year or two now. So why not finally take that step? So we went to the information session and my mom and I, we drove separately. So we arrived at different times. We weren't really sitting right next to each other. She was a little closer up to the front. I was in the back. And at the end of the session, I walked up to her and I was a little afraid to ask, what did you think? Do you think this is a scam? There's so many different classes, teachings, trainings like this out there that you don't know what's valid and what's not. And so I kind of walked up to her cautious to know what she was going to say. And I was like, what are your thoughts? And she was like, we're doing it. I was like, what? Wait, what? And she was like, we're signing up like right now. Let's go to the back table and sign up. And I was like, really? And she's like, yeah, this information is good. I've wanted to do this for so long. There's really good opportunity here. And now we finally have somebody to teach us. Like when I tried to do this so many years ago, there was nobody to teach me. But now we have the resources. So let's go do it. And I was just like, okay, let's do this. Let's sign up for I think the master class was the next step. So we signed up for the master class.
Shocking, right? Like you were probably like you were waiting for the protective parent, right? Like, no, can't do this. And she's like, no, let's go.
That surprised me so much. But if anything, that made me like step forward in confidence, knowing that she was like backing me in that. And now this was something that we were going to do together, because originally I think it was something that I wanted to explore, but now like it's something that we can do together.
Yeah.
So we went to the master class, and the master class was amazing. Like it was a 3-day class. We had Matt Davis, who's like a really cool guy, incredible guy. And the way he went through the information, the way he explained, gave examples, the information was just resonating, and we were learning so much. And I believe at that class is where they offer like the full program.
Yeah.
And there were some people that signed up like the first day. Yeah. We did not. Again, still like a little skeptical. We're like, can we invest this amount of money? We need to spend money to make money. We're paying for the education. Like, should we do this? And on the last day, we were like running some numbers, comping properties and things like that with Matt, as a class. And while we were working on numbers, he comes over. My mom and I are sitting towards the back. He comes over and he goes, "You're signing up, right?" And I was like, "What?" And he was like, "You're signing up, right? Like, you really need to sign up."
Yeah.
And I was like, "What do you, you're coming over to us specifically?" And he was like, like you need to. I don't think that there needs to be a decision making process here. Like, you have to do it. And something about that, I think, made both of us feel like really confident to just be like, yeah, you know what? I think that's the confirmation we needed. And we're like, I'm Christian, my mom's Christian. We move in faith. And there was one thing that Matt told us too. He's like, like, you're going to be blessed. And we were just like, wait, yeah, I guess this is the right move. We thought this was the right move, and now we just got confirmation. Yeah. So from there, we decided to sign up and continue the journey.
That's interesting. It's sometimes fascinating to me. Well, it's always fascinating to me how our belief in ourselves is mitigated so often because of past experiences. And sometimes it just takes somebody else believing in you, saying, "Hey, like, I know you can do this," to finally say, okay, like it sometimes, I wonder why we need that from other people. Because I feel it myself.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm definitely that kind of person where, I'm my own worst critic.
Yeah.
And maybe that's just a big thing with people with like type A personalities and things like that. But having that person to really just point us out and say, "Hey, like, you got to do this."
Yeah.
That was awesome.
You went down the path that most people, like middle class, says, do what Vania did, right? Go to college, go get a degree in business, and you're going to live the life. Like, that's the path that I was going down too, was go get a business degree and you're going to be, this incredible corporate CEO. Like, that's where you were trying to go, right? And you did it. Like, you graduated from college and you were in the corporate world. Like, your business degree paid off and you were living the corporate life dream. right?
Yeah.
But it wasn't your dream. Why not? Like, what does it actually feel like to be in that world? There's so many people that look back and be like, man, if I could have just got a business degree, and if I could be in corporate America and climb the ladder and have all the benefits, right? Like 401ks and IRAs and health insurance and time off, like paid time off and vacation and all of those things. Like that's what you were doing.
Yes, absolutely. I think the way, and maybe it has to do with social media, or, in high school when they're talking about like one day you're going to go to college, it's so glamorized, and it's not like that in the real world. Once you actually get into the real world, like it might be for some people, but my experience, especially working in sales, it's very cutthroat sometimes. It's very, some of the other stereotypes with being in the corporate world, like people will act a certain way just to please a boss, not necessarily working morally. I experienced that, and I realized like this isn't what I wanted. But yeah, I did pursue it. I even went through the leadership program at my job so that I could become a manager. And it wasn't until I went through that and saw how other managers operated that I thought, well, a lot of these people like drink the company Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
And they're not actually acting how I would want to act as a manager. So if I'm just expected to, follow whatever my boss says, even if it's wrong, well, that's not how I operate. Like, that's not my personality. I'm going to work in the way that's right, like in front of God and in front of like everyone else. I have ethics, and I saw that some people just didn't operate that way. As long as their boss approved and, they were getting their check, they didn't care who got hurt. And that is just not right to me. So I didn't pursue the leadership track, and I saw that there was a limit to how much I could grow within the company while still keeping myself, like not losing myself in that. And I think that throughout that process, that was around the 3-year mark.
Yeah.
That's where I realized like, yeah, I need to start looking for something else. And then as far as, the 401k and all those other things, like you realize that that's not actually as, once again, glamorous as it is. Like people who have 401ks, you see that they get to retirement and they actually can't afford to maintain their lifestyle. So, and they spent all these years working to still be struggling in the end. Like that's just not right. I'm pretty sure that in the class, Matt Davis mentioned that like 98% of people who have a 401k at retirement, they can't sustain the same lifestyle that they had while working. And that to me just blew my mind. Like if I have a 98% failure rate in my eyes, that is not good to me. Like I need to be a part of the 2% who can live my life even when I'm older. And why not even just have that now? I don't need to wait till that long. So that was my reality check of like something needs to change.
Yeah.
Another big thing was that I saw people at my company. So I'm 26 now. I started at the company that I worked for when I was 21. And I just saw that there were some people who had been there for so long, but they didn't seem to be progressing. Like we were in the same spot, like we're in the same exact role, but you're in your 50s and I'm in my 20s. And if this is where I'm going to be when I'm 50, I don't consider that success. Like you still have to request off to go on a vacation. That's not success to me.
Yeah. Let's sit there for a minute.
Okay.
Because you mentioned you grew up in a household and sometimes this is the case, right? You had to go away. Like you had to become the prodigal son, essentially, right? Like you went away, you didn't realize the good that you had, that you'd grown up with in your house, and you became the prodigal daughter, right? Like you went away and then you came back and you're like, wait, hold on. Everybody told me success is this corporate pathway. And I think that a lot of people see it that way. Like they see the 1%er of the corporate world that comes and goes and is the CEO. And they have this huge, incredible life, right? You see the Tim Cooks and those kind of people, and you're like, man, that's the dream. But the reality is most people don't go that way. Most people are 50 years old doing the job that a 26-year-old is doing. And so you had to come back and you're like, wait, hold on, maybe my parents, maybe that was success.
Maybe they were right. They were absolutely right. And I've told them that too.
Have you? So
Right.
define success now for Vanya. Like, what do you actually consider success?
Success for me would be to have my own business that allows me to take back control of my time. So it's not even about money, because I will say the corporate world, you can make some money. Although I will say now that I've gone through the program, I've realized what I thought was money, making money before. There's so much, I've expanded my mind so much. Like I can become a millionaire.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to become a millionaire in the corporate world. That's 100% sure. Yeah, I was making okay money to sustain myself, but still limited.
Yeah.
But really where I've realized I would be happiest or where I want to go is to take back my time. I don't want to have to spend, 60 hours a week on a computer to make minimum wage. Well, not really minimum wage, but you know what I mean. And so, yeah, it's taking back my time so that I can dedicate it to things that I deem more important. So like giving back to the community and my faith and being able to do community service in the church. I have a nephew now. Like years ago, he's 4 now. When I started in the corporate world, I didn't have a nephew, and I didn't realize I want to be able to dedicate time to him.
Yeah.
And so just taking back control of that time. I'm also a big traveler. I love traveling. So I want to be able to, pick up and go and work from wherever I am. I don't need to be in a specific place to accomplish what I could accomplish in Europe, in Asia, in South America, So just that open door and more freedom, really. Success is that freedom.
Was there a moment that you realized, was there an aha moment where you're like, because you said 3 years in, you went and got your license, but you didn't do anything. And then it took another 2 years really for you to say, okay, I'm done. Was there an actual pivotal moment or something that happened that was like, okay, this is my turning point?
Actually, yes. So in my corporate job, after I passed up the promotions that I was offered, I still was moving into another role that was going to give me the opportunity to make more money. And I was promised all of these things, another promotion was going to be in the works. I was supposed to get a decent raise. And fast forward a few months, it all fell apart. And basically they came back to me and they were like, sorry, we can't do anything for you. And I realized that was going to be the pattern for the rest of my life if I stayed in that space. So it finally clicked when I said hey, I already have my license. I worked so hard to get that. I had a plan in my head and I just never followed through because I allowed this to take up my time. That was always my excuse, which was, I don't have time. I'm working. I don't have time. Well, there's 24 hours in the day. Yeah. There is the time. You're just not allocating it correctly,
Sure.
And so I finally got to a point where I was like, you know what? No, I have the time. I'm going to make the time. And now I need to take action. Because if I don't, what's the opportunity cost? I have to stay here forever. And that's just not okay. So I wasn't willing to accept that. And that's when I finally started taking those steps forward.
I think most entrepreneurs, I have mine. I have that moment that I realize okay, that's not the life for me. It's not what I want.
And also, you get to a point where you're like, I don't want this to be my future for my generations to come. And my parents, one thing that my dad has always told me, and again, I didn't listen to him initially, and I did go into the corporate world, but he comes from Dominican Republic. I'm a first generation American. My mom's from Puerto Rico. They have citizenship, but still a different country. And one thing that he always told me was, I worked so hard for you to have freedom in this country. If you're sitting at a desk for 60 hours a week, that's not what I worked for you. So don't waste what I did for you.
Wow.
And that's another one of those moments where you're like, oh, wow, yeah, I can't do this anymore, because they're so, like, my parents have made that many sacrifices for me so that I could be here, not for me to just be a slave to somebody else. Like, they created this freedom for me and this opportunity for me, and we are in the land of opportunity. So why am I not taking it? There's so many people that have done it. Why not me? Like, you finally get to a point where you say, why not me? It's like mind blowing. You finally get to a point. You're like, why didn't I get here sooner?
Okay, now, just so you know, everybody watching this that's older than 26 is going to be like, come on, Vania.
Okay.
Yeah.
I do have a point on that.
Yeah.
So I was, during that time when I first entered Tax Lien Code, or like right before, I was getting down on myself, saying like, I really screwed up my life. Like, I'm 26 and I don't have a 50-unit commercial property. Like, where did I go wrong? But then as I started attending the Tax Lien Code sessions and just meeting people from different parts of the US and just different backgrounds, I've realized, like, wow, I can't complain about my current situation, because there's people now, like, in their 50s and 60s and even 70s, like, who are just starting, but everyone's taking that step. And whether you're this age or this stage, like, you're still taking that step.
Yeah.
And I think even somebody, like one person, and in the very beginning, I did make a comment like, I wish I started sooner.
Yeah.
Somebody came up to me and was like, you should not be complaining. Like, he called me out. He was like, you should not be complaining, because I'm in my 50s and I'm just starting. Like, you have 30 extra years on me.
Yeah.
So don't complain and just do what you need to do to be successful. And I'm like, yeah, no, you're right. I'll never complain about this again. Like, I haven't. I don't say that anymore of like, I wish I started sooner. No, instead it's, this is where I am now. What do I need to do to move forward? Like, no thoughts on the past at this point. Like, now it's just forward.
I mean, what I'm hearing, there's so much responsibility. And I feel this for me. And often people will ask about Tax Lien Code and why I started Tax Lien Code. And if you're so successful, why not just do your business? Why are you here teaching people? And the foundation of it is essentially what you talked about. I mean, it's an incredible pressure for your parents to say, we're here because we believe it's the land of opportunity, and we've given you so many opportunities that, Vania, you need to be better. Like, that's a lot of pressure. Like, hey, we put you in a spot for you to be successful. Be successful. But now there's so much opportunity for you. And I feel that as an investor myself, of so many people got me where I am today, that I feel a responsibility to turn around and say, hey, this worked for me. I believe it can work for you, and it's worked for so many people. Just do it this way. And I feel that's kind of what your parents are saying, is like, we've put you now in a path of opportunity, and you have everything in front of you. So go be successful, Vania.
Like, use the tools that are right in front of you. You have the tool belt. Why aren't you using it?
But then you said that now you're on a path, and this like gave me chills, to change. It's generational now for you. And that's what your parents try to create for you. And I'm glad that Tax Lien Code has a part in that. But now it's changing the generations. Now, your future, your nephew, maybe your kids at some point. How are you going to teach them differently? Like, your path, and maybe that was Instagram, maybe that was social media, of like, hey, Vania, go get a corporate job, be a corporate, person, like, be this like hugely successful corporate American person. But how are you going to put the next generation on a path based on what you've experienced?
Yeah, I mean, my mindset is so different. I'll back up here for a moment. A few years ago, because I work from home, I work remote, and for the first 2 years of my nephew's life, he lived with us.
Okay.
And there was one moment, or one day, where he was on a toy laptop, and I was like, Isaac, what are you doing? And he goes, oh, I'm at work like you. Oh my goodness. That hurt, because I was like, well, I'm not happy, and I don't want to implant that mindset into his brain, like, this is what work and work life is, and this is cool. Like, no, it's not. So that was an eye opener. But now, like, what are we going to do different? I mean, he's going to get into real estate hopefully very, very, very early. I've actually created an account for him. So I spoke to my sister. This was actually something I did this year now that he's 4. Instead of giving him a toy every year for his birthday, for Christmas, I actually now have an account for him, and I'll just put in money so that when he gets to a certain age, he'll be able to use that money to either invest or like dedicate it to some sort of education. So now we're not just throwing away money on toys, which he has 1 billion, he doesn't need any more toys. Now we're setting him up for success, and it's in an interest-bearing account. So that way it continues to grow. So that's one way we're just doing things differently this time around. But then also, even though he's 4 years old, like if I go show a property, he's coming with me. He's already come with me a few times. And it's pretty cool to see him like going around saying like, this is the kitchen, so he's already, seeing that, that world. And I mean, if he grows up and he doesn't want to go into real estate, that's fine. But certainly we will teach him that entrepreneurial mindset, not an employee mindset. Like, we're done with that.
It's such a different mindset because one's a belief in self and one's a belief in others. Mm-hmm. As an entrepreneur, you have to have a belief that you're capable, that you can do it, instead of I'm trusting somebody else. I'm trusting the corporate job. I'm trusting those managers that you were like, I don't like their ethics, but I'm building their business and I'm believing in them.
That was another big thing when I was in the corporate world, because I work with enterprise-sized companies. So, these huge companies that have over 1,000 employees to like 50,000 employees. And I thought, I'm making millions of dollars a year for this company. Why aren't I making $1 million a year for myself? Like, I'm getting, this is the pie and I'm getting this much.
Yeah.
Like, no, just give me the whole pie. And that's only possible when you create your own business.
When you want the whole pie, it means you're responsible for the whole pie. So instead of doing a sliver of the work and getting a sliver of the pie, what has that felt like though? To go from a corporate America where you were responsible for this and got this chunk of the profit, to be now responsible for the whole thing. Like, the whole thing's on you now.
Yeah, it's different, but not, because to be honest, even running your own business, it's not less work. Like, it's not. And that's the reality of that. Yeah. But in my opinion, it's more rewarding work. Like, I know that I'm doing this for me and my family, not to like please a stockholder who I've never even met.
Yeah.
So that aspect is different. I wouldn't even compare the pies because they're just in such different buckets.
Well, take me through, you talked about being a millionaire, and I remember what that felt like for me when I realized that, like, that was a checkbox moment for me. And I remember seeing this reel on social media. I don't remember even who said it. But the first million is hard. Like, it's hard. It's really hard to get to that first million. But then the second million's easier. And then the fifth million is easier so to get to one's hard. To get to two is easier. Like, it's not the same amount of work to go from 1 to 2 as it was from 0 to 1. It's easier to get from 1 to 2, and then from 2 to 5 is easier than from 1 to 2. And then from 5 to 10 is easier than it was from 2 to 5. That first million is the hardest thing that you will do. But that's your goal. So what does that look like? What will it feel like to you? What do you envision that'll feel like when you get to that first million?
I don't know. I have no idea. I think it'll be like a, did this really happen kind of moment? Because again, you're always going to have that doubt. Like, this kind of goes back to what we said about having that type A personality. You're always going to, I think, doubt yourself to some degree of, can I do this? Yes, I'm going to do this. Can I really do this? I think that first million, because I mean, I want to build generational wealth. I want to build incredible wealth for my family. Not just about the money, but like with money comes some, other benefits like time. But so the goal is to go far beyond 1 million.
Yeah.
But that first million, I think, will be like the moment of, oh yeah, like this is real, it's happening, and we're growing. But I don't know. I can't fully grasp what it's going to feel like until I'm there. Because even now, we just acquired a property, and I'm already feeling that. Like, oh yeah, this is happening. And so I think it'll be that feeling, but 10 times more, a million times more.
Yeah, for sure, that momentum. And it's amazing, that first property, the second property, the fifth property, they just compile and they get so much easier. But you mentioned all of the freedom, and that's the part that is so exciting for me. My wife and I got to go to Japan a couple weeks ago, and sitting in a hotel in Kyoto, the time zone's completely different than the United States, and so the world is turning, at different times, and so I'd wake up in the morning and everybody in America is going to bed, and sitting in my hotel room in Kyoto, overlooking this beautiful river, and working. And buying tax liens and investing and answering email. Like, it was such a surreal experience. And that's what you were talking about. And I can't wait for you to have that same experience a year from now, 2 years from now, 6 months from now.
Yeah, I think it's going to open up so many doors just to be able to work from anywhere. Because even now, like, yes, I work remote, but the company still expects me to be in a certain time zone and a certain location. So there's that's a restriction, but I don't want to have to work within those restrictions. So being able to have something that I can work from anywhere, like home is where the Wi-Fi is. Amazing. It opens so many doors and so many opportunities.
Yeah. I love that. Home is where the Wi-Fi is. All right. So the final question I have for you, and I've been wanting to come back to this since the moment you mentioned it. Your mom was curious about tax liens 20 years ago, and she tried. She looked it up, and it was so manual. And it took us a year at the beginning of Tax Lien Code before we did, maybe not a year, 6 months of building and structuring to create tools and resources so that you could invest. So much of tax lien investing is still manual. The county puts out this list, and you have to scrub lists from so many different websites and pull data. And the marketplace opened up and allowed us to invest all across the country. And we were able to now make that available to anybody else, to students and, to you and your mom. What was your mom's, like, how did it affect your mom? Like, because that was my experience. I was in real estate for 10 or 15 years before I discovered tax liens, and then you start dipping your toe into it, and everybody's curious or they've heard about it, but they can't figure out how to do it. What's been your mom's experience looking at it 20 years ago and then today?
Yeah, we've actually spoken about this because I have asked her, and she says that it's a totally different experience because back 20 years ago, you were subject to whoever was in the office that day that you walked in. And most of the time, there were people who either didn't know or didn't want to tell you. So one thing that she mentioned to me was back 20 years ago when she did try to get these lists and stuff, she oftentimes ran into somebody that didn't want to provide the list because it didn't benefit them to give that list out. Like, they were reserving some of those lists for other, bigger investors, and they didn't want to allow people to have that opportunity. They wanted to monopolize that list. Whereas now we have access to it in one portal most of the time, and it's just so much easier to access. Of course, you still have to do your due diligence, and there's extra research. You might go on the county websites or the tax appraisers' websites and that kind of thing. But it's streamlining the process so much. I don't have to drive over to the county courthouse to ask for a list anymore. I can just go on my laptop, do a little Google search, and there it is. So it's saving time, it's streamlining the process, and it just makes things a lot easier. And also now we can look at places outside of Pennsylvania. Over here, if I was subject to just my county, well, that's very, very limiting. Now I can look at a tax lien in Florida or a tax lien, in different states, and I'm not limited.
Yeah. Well, that's exciting. That's, I hear that just so much. That was the experience of so many investors for so long. They wanted to get into tax liens, but it just wasn't feasible. So, all right, Vania, I want one last piece of advice from you to the investor that is just maybe thinking about getting started or wants to get started but is hesitant. I mean, you've been in a year, about a year, is that right? Maybe not quite a year.
Yeah.
Almost
not quite a year, but almost a year.
So what would you give me one piece of advice for that person that is just either thinking about or is just starting their journey?
I would say take a moment to ask yourself, why not you? You've seen that there are multiple people who are successful in real estate, in different areas of real estate. The market is big enough for everyone. Like, why not you? Yeah. And I think once you finally realize that it could be you, and that's a very real possibility, and you don't have to just be in the rat race that we're taught from young, then it's going to change the way you think. It's going to change your future. It's going to change just everything for you. And like, that's ultimately what we want to grow. So yeah, like, why not you?
I love it.
And then do it. Like, that's the biggest thing. Do it.
I'm going to steal both of those, just so you know, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate the time. I'm rooting for you again. Put another Investor of the Year video out.
Yes.
Let's go, Vania. So
thank you so much.
It's always a pleasure talking with you.
Yeah, I love these conversations. It's always really motivating. And thanks for hearing me out, hearing my story.
Of course.
And hopefully the next time we connect, I'll have a 120 unit building.
Deal. Let's do it.